Kia ora and welcome back. This is my fourth tutorial, and today we're looking at defense, retreat, and peace negotiations in Civilization 5. Please subscribe and like if you'd like to see some more, and without further ado, let's crack in. So, sometimes in Civ, things don't quite go to plan. Sometimes, after a combat, or after a war, or perhaps even just totally blindsided by the AI, you will be attacked, right? The AI, granted, isn't often as aggressive as another player would be, but there are certain civilizations, such as the Huns and the Zulu Kingdom, who will be more aggressive than others, and you will find, depending on your difficulty, that this can be a real challenge, particularly for new players. You know, war is exciting and thrilling. So, I'm going to take you through 5 tips for when you're not on the aggressive side. In my last tutorial, we talked about fighting wars and taking cities. This time, it's going to be about what happens when someone else fights you and someone else takes your city. So here in the gameplay, you can see I've just taken Attila's court, and he is coming back with a vengeance. And spoiler alert, I'm going to take it back from me and wipe out a reasonable chunk of my army. So here's my 5 tips for how to successfully retreat, how to defend yourself in combat and defend against an enemy advance, and finally, how to negotiate peace successfully with the AI and really make sure you kind of game the system and get some benefits. So the 5 things that I'm going to go through today are, firstly, pillaging. Secondly, I'm going to talk about overcommitting to the fight. Thirdly, killing units and edging out a great peace deal. Fourthly, I'm going to talk about defensive formations and trying to sort of reduce your losses in the fight. And lastly, and my favorite tip of them all, I think it's the most fun, we're going to talk about using great generals in a defensive capacity, specifically using their ability, which is the citadel. So, tip number 1, pillaging. So as you can see here, I'm on the way out. I've lost Attila's court. I've lost the fight. I've got some relatively weak units, and I know that this city isn't going to be mine anytime soon. Like, his forces are too strong. I don't have anything in reserve. It's time to play it smart. And the first way to play it smart is to pillage. So your units will have a thing they can do, just like an attack or a movement, where they can pillage. You will have seen me do it already on the cocoa plantations up to the top left of Attila's court, and you'll see me do it again. It's an action that a unit can use. It essentially destroys any tile improvement. So it will reduce the incoming yield from a tile, so the tile's owner, aka the person you're at war with, will lose food or gold or science or whatever that tile's producing. You will get a benefit from pillaging the tile. Usually it's gold, which you can then use to finance more troops or buildings. And also your troop will heal a little bit. So it's really a great way to recover some resources and screw over your opponent as like a last sort of FU on your way out. You pillage the tile and then you run away, because you can pillage and move as well. It doesn't usually take up all of your movements. So this is my first tip. You get a bit of money. You get to screw over your opponent on the way out. Don't stick around like I'm toying with doing here and stabbing a couple of units and going down fighting. No. Keep your units, particularly your promoted ones. And just like this, bam! Pillage the tile. There, he's not getting the horses. I've reduced his yield and made a little bit of money and gained some health back. And also screwed him over. So yeah, make sure you pillage. Always pillage. If you think the land isn't going to be yours, pillage. Always. If you think the land is going to be yours even, there are some instances where pillaging is still okay. So yeah, basically, if you're losing, defending or retreating, pillage away. My second tip is overcommitting, and it sort of ties in with the pillaging on the way out. And look at this peace deal, by the way. He's going to give me another city, but we'll get to that later when we went peace on my terms. So don't overcommit, because you do have valuable units. You have valuable units that have promotions, that have lots of experience, that cost a lot of either money or production, and you don't want to lose them. Only commit to a fight if you think you can win it. And in this instance, I could probably, like, he's got roughly the same number of units as me. We could position them well and put up a fight and take them out, but it would just bleed me dry. I'd have nothing left. Maybe I can take it to his court, but maybe he's got another army out of view like he did last time in episode 3 of this series. So Like, I honestly really don't overcommit. You can always come back and try again. And it might not feel like it at the time, but just remember, it's a long game. World domination does not happen overnight, right? Rome wasn't dominated in a day. It fell apart over hundreds of years. So don't overcommit. My third tip is about killing units and then edging out a great peace deal. So you saw that peace deal before where he was basically going to give us one of his cities if we confirmed peace. And for context, he'd already taken his capital back from me. Yes, I took it earlier in the fight and held it for a few turns, but he's already taken it back and killed a load of my units. There is no logical way that any sane-minded human player would give up their second city, their second largest city in a peace deal when they're fighting a player who is clearly losing, right? I'm clearly losing this, or at least it's a stalemate, because he's taken his city back. Yet, for some reason, he's willing to give me something. What? It doesn't make sense, right? Well, let me let you in on a little secret. The AI in this game is pretty dumb, and when it comes to negotiating peace deals, the AI is really dumb. Even in this situation where I'm losing, I'm retreating, I've decided I'm not going to overcommit. I'm just going to get what I can and get out and come back later as a stronger force. The AI and Attila is still willing to give me this fantastic deal. So you might be wondering, well, why is that? Well, firstly, it takes into account everything that's happened over the course of the war. So it does take into account the fact that I took his capital and held it for a while. And yes, he's got it now, but I did take it and I killed some of his units in the process. So that's the first factor. The second factor is the pillaging. So I'm still causing ongoing damage to his civilization, which is affecting my war score, effectively, if you want to think about it that way. Like, it's still positive things that I'm doing to win the war. Maybe not on a really wide level, but at a narrow, specific level, destroying that tile is just more damage that I'm causing, right? It's me being a pain in his backside, and that is crucial towards getting a good peace deal. The third is my current situation. So even though I'm losing and I'm planning to retreat, I still have a reasonable army of around 5 or 6 troops, and they're still right up on his border and in his land. So that's something that the AI is taking into account as well. It's taking into account how strong I am. It's just looking at numbers, probably, like purely just looking at each troop is worth 50 score, then I have like 350 combat score or whatever. It's looking at that, and it's looking at how strong I am, and it's thinking, okay, this person is still a threat, even though we're clearly doing much better than him, which he clearly is. It still thinks that I'm a threat. And then lastly, because I'm still killing some of his units, that's going to favor me as well. So as I know I'm about to negotiate peace, I'm going to try and attack a couple of his units, kill a couple like I just did before, kill one, and just push my war score up that little bit more, right? I can use the fact that it's my turn and that I'm going to do it on my turn rather than letting him do it on his turn to my advantage. I can get in a few extra attacks, right? A couple of like last FU punches, if you think about it. Like I'm going down screaming, I'm flailing about, and my arms are going everywhere, and I'm like punching his units and causing a little bit of damage and being a real thorn in his side, and every little bit is going towards that crucial peace negotiation. And the net benefit from it is just wild. Like, it is absolutely ridiculous what the AI will give you. So in this one, I've negotiated peace, and I've claimed for all of his gold, a whole load of gold per turn, all of his resources. I didn't want one of his cities, but I probably could have thrown a city on as well, to be fair. And I'm just going to take everything from him, even though I'm completely decimated, right? And you can see that the war is over, and I've gained so much stuff. Like, I'm just absolutely rolling in everything because of this fantastic peace deal with the AI. My fourth and fifth tips are kind of related to each other, but the fourth one is about defensive formations. So as you're leaving, make sure that you use those same formations we talked about in the last video. Keep your units together, keep them in favorable terrain. So you want to keep them in woods or on high ground, and you want to keep them next to each other so you get the adjacency bonuses. I just wanted to reiterate that again, because as well as being an aggressive tip, it's also a defensive tip. You want to get those combat bonuses wherever you can, so keep your units clustered. And then lastly, this great general. So I've moved him up right onto my border, 1, 2, 3 tiles away from my city, and as close to his city as I can get. Now, I could have actually moved one more outside of my land, but I decided not to. So I've moved the general right up to the top there, and I've protected him with one of my MP. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this special ability of this general, once I click him, there, construct a citadel. Right, so that's going to create a tile improvement right here on this tile. It's going to build a citadel, which will lose me a food, but it will gain me a production hilariously. But what it will do is it just creates this amazing fort, right? It's like the fort the worker builds, but on steroids. If you're fighting an aggressive war, you may be best to keep your great general because he or she provides a buff combat bonus to units nearby. But if you're defending like I am here, build the citadel and put a unit in it. Never take the unit out of it because then the citadel is defenseless. But if you build a citadel, you put a unit in it, it will firstly claim a bit of land. You'll see I've gained, get rid of that. You'll see I've gained these tiles around it. So it's, and actually if you're bordering the enemy, you can actually steal their tiles. I wasn't quite close enough to do that, but you can. It will take the tiles around it, basically, and they'll become yours, regardless of whose they were before, which is amazing. So, so I'll just refuse that peace deal. You'll see the peace deal in a bit, and this citadel will deal, I think it's 30 damage to any enemy unit that finishes its turn within one tile of it. So basically what I've done is I've constructed this mega fort that just pumps out insane damage and completely blocks Attila from advancing forward this way. I've harnessed geography, essentially. It's like there's a mountain range in his way now. This citadel, it just pumps out damage. He cannot push through. And that is my 5th and final tip. Use your great general in a defensive position to build a citadel and then hold the citadel. It will pump out damage to any units that try and push up towards it. Like that spearman did just there. You see it just took 30 damage because it finished its turn near it. It wasn't even on it. If he tries to attack into me, he will also take severe damage. So honestly, it's just the citadels are an insane way to not only steal land, but defend your unit and completely stop future attacks. So now what I can do is successfully build up an army and strike at him again, all thanks to the citadel effectively creating a massive chokehold and completely stopping him from doing anything. And with that, we've found a way how we can tactically retreat, how we can build the best peace deal possible, which you're about to see very soon. I'll close out the video with the actual peace deal itself, even though I know I kind of spoiled it earlier, but we've negotiated best peace deal possible, and we've ensured that we're defended into the future. Now, is this foolproof? Could he walk around? Yeah, of course he could, right? There's space for him to walk around, but it's difficult because there's rivers and woodlands, and until we get to right at the end game, it's going to be really tricky for Attila to mount an attack here. I only need 1 or 2 units up by that citadel, and I am away laughing. So just to reiterate those 5 tips before you see the peace deal right at the end. First one, pillage. Always pillage. Unless you think that tile's about to be yours, pillage it. Don't overcommit your troops because you can always come back. Kill units and edge out a great peace deal like this one right here. Keep your defensive formations and use your great general to build a citadel. And with that, boom, there's our peace deal. We've just taken all of his money and all of his resources, and he is well and truly stuffed, and then we can just let that deal play out and then come back and kill him once it's over. Thanks very much for watching. I'm going to save the game here, and I will see you next time.